Government task force will investigate mirror concert accident. More than 4,600 COVID cases reported today. No mention of Taiwan visit on Nancy Pelosi's official itinerary. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The dancer hit by a fallen screen during a concert by the band Mirror remains in critical condition, but authorities say his vital signs are stable. His parents returned from Canada this morning to visit their son. A government task force set up to look into the incident will hold a meeting for the first time tomorrow. Officers of the West Kowloon Regional Crime Unit, now in charge of the investigation, and staff members from several governmental departments inspected the Hong Kong Coliseum this afternoon. Police say the screen in question will not be removed for now, and the force is reaching out to the contractor for investigation. Superintendent Alan Chung said it will take time to gather evidence in a venue this big, and he vowed to get to the truth. The government task force set up to look into the incident will have its first meeting tomorrow. They will seek to identify the cause of the incident and make suggestions to prevent a recurrence of similar incidents. The Labour Department will also look into whether the organisers safeguarded the safety of staff according to the law. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Kevin Yeung will supervise the investigation. Earlier this morning, the parents of the critically injured dancer arrived in Hong Kong. They reportedly visited their son at Queen Elizabeth Hospital and met the medical team there. That prompted questions over whether the pair received preferential treatment. The Department of Health stressed it has approved more than 1,200 applications from people who are subject to quarantine to visit critically ill family members or to attend a funeral.
In February and in March, if you will remember that we were in a very difficult position. Therefore, some different arrangements might be made in the light of water management. But I have to stress that compassionate visits has always been arranged in the system.
Meanwhile, 23 other dancers from the Mirror concert released a joint statement saying they will not make any comments as an investigation is still underway. They added none of the anonymous comments circulating online were from them, adding they did not organize any crowdfunding. Some lawmakers have criticized the government over the handling of the investigation and the lack of proper vetting processes. Lawmaker for the performing arts sector, Kenneth Fogg, believes the government probe into the incident would take 7 to 8 weeks. He said the process should be quicker. Lawmaker Michael Tian slammed the lack of proper vetting procedures, which threatens the safety of people. The Electrical and Mechanical Services Department said it did not have a role in vetting installations for the Mirror concert. It's also understood that there will be another concert at the venue next month, which for now will go ahead as scheduled. The city logged 4,634 new COVID cases today, including 4,455 local infections. An unvaccinated elderly man who was in stable condition 4 days after he was infected died 1 day later after his condition suddenly worsened. Timothy Lee has more.
The city saw one more death from the ongoing pandemic. This involved an 82-year-old man suffering from diabetes and high blood pressure who was unvaccinated. He sought medical help at a general outpatient clinic for coughing and headaches last Monday and was found to be infected with COVID. 2 days later, he visited a designated clinic for treatment. He was given oral drugs and allowed to leave owing to his stable condition and lack of fever. He then caught a fever on Friday and was treated at hospital with worsening conditions such as kidney and liver failure. The man passed away on Saturday.
Given that he has multiple long-term chronic comorbidities, and also one of the issue is that he got confirmed with the COVID, and subsequently his condition deteriorated with multi-organ failure. So probably we postulate that the COVID infection may be one of the reasons.
Meanwhile, another elderly care home in Kwai Chung reported an infection by a resident who was vaccinated once, with 7 other residents needing to undergo quarantine. The hospital authority now requires health workers in designated departments to perform 2 PCR tests per week in addition to daily RAT tests. The requirement will extend to those working in emergency rooms and elderly care home outreach staff starting in August. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Nancy Pelosi, the U.S. House of Representatives Speaker, starts a tour of 4 Asian countries on Sunday. Her office made no mention of Taiwan amid intense speculation that Pelosi might visit the island. Pelosi's office said in a press release that Speaker Nancy Pelosi is leading a congressional delegation to the Indo-Pacific region, including visits to Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea and Japan. The release did not specify whether Pelosi may make other stops. President Xi Jinping has earlier warned U.S. President Joe Biden in a phone call against playing with fire over the island. Former Philippines President Fidel Ramos has died on Sunday, aged 94, online news site Rappler reported. Ramos ruled the country from 1992 to 1998, having held high-ranking security roles before becoming president. He was hailed by many as a hero of the 1986 People Power uprising that toppled the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos Sr., the father and namesake of the recently elected Philippine leader. Russian President Vladimir Putin said his navy will be getting hypersonic Zircon cruise missiles soon. Speaking in St. Petersburg, where he was attending the annual Navy Day celebration, Putin said the missile would be received in the next few months. Putin also said he had signed a new Navy doctrine, the details of which were not published. The Kremlin boss also made a reference to Tsar Peter the Great for making Russia a great sea power. The Zircon missile can travel at 9 times the speed of sound and will be deployed first on the frigate Admiral Gorshkov. Russia has conducted tests of the missile over the past year from surface, ships and submarines. Still to come on tonight's news. Financial Secretary Paul Chan forecasts worrying economic figures. U.S. President Joe Biden infected with COVID again. And a $1 billion winning lottery ticket, it's still unclaimed. Welcome back to TVB News. As the government is set to announce the city's second quarter GDP data tomorrow, Financial Secretary Paul Chan said the figure will be a decline from a year earlier. Caleb Leung has details.
The International Monetary Fund earlier slashed its global growth projections for 2022 and 2023, adding that the probability of a global recession is increasing. In his latest block entry, Financial Secretary Paul Chan said the global economic outlook has clearly deteriorated, which has affected Hong Kong's economic performance. He said the city will report a decline in GDP for the second quarter from a year earlier, although the economy did improve from the previous 3 months. As for Hong Kong's economic growth forecast for 2022, the finance chief believes the figure will be lowered. With the increasing interest rates in the U.S., Hong Kong is also under pressure to raise rates, which may affect the stock market and asset prices and hurt consumer sentiment. But Chen expects the second batch of consumption vouchers, which will be disbursed by installments starting next week, will help boost consumer sentiment. He said if the epidemic remains under control, together with the effect of consumption vouchers, retail and dining sales may improve significantly. The finance chief also announced that the issuance size of the 7th batch of the silver bond will be raised to a maximum of $45 billion. The interest rate will be raised to 4% from the 3.5% offered on the 6th batch of the bond. In February, Chen announced in his budget that no less than $35 billion of silver bond will be issued this financial year. The finance chief also mentioned the Hong Kong Sevens and the Global Financial Leaders Investment Summit, which are set to take place in November. Chen said the 2 events will help to reconnect Hong Kong with the outside world since the pandemic started 2 years ago and will help boost international connections. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
George Leung, the Chief Executive Officer of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce, has urged the government to ease its international border restrictions urgently. He also told TVB News the city's economy could shrink this year. Timothy Lee has the story.
With the city still troubled by COVID and the various restrictions it brings, the business community is concerned about the economic outlook. Speaking at a TVB news program, George Leung, the CEO of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce, said the city may experience negative economic growth for the entire year. He said forecasts for Hong Kong's economic growth has already been lowered to 1.2% in February as a result of the fifth wave of COVID and the war in Ukraine. And their impacts have lasted longer than expected. He emphasized the urgent need for the return of quarantine-free travel with other countries, and there's no need to wait until November, when the city will host major international financial and sporting events for that to happen. He said most cities around the world have opened up for traveling, and Hong Kong will lose a lot of business opportunities if it continues with its current restrictions. On whether the city will follow the U.S. rate hikes, Leung believes Hong Kong's banks will retain a degree of flexibility.
I think Hong Kong possibly will follow the U.S. rate hike, but not be very substantial. There is still a lot of room for the banks not to rate hike at the moment. Unless the interest rate move up, though judging from that, implying that the Fed has to raise another 75 or 100 basis points before you can see Hong Kong interest rates start to rise.
Leung also reminded home buyers and those paying mortgages to pay extra attention to their own finances in the current financial climate.
Because in the interest rate rising cycle, definitely there will be more cost burden on the mortgage plan. And also, over this period, the economy is not good. So there is a possibility that they might lose their job. So they have to value, whether their financial capability is sufficient to handle any interest rate rise in the future.
Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Overseas, U.S. President Joe Biden has tested positive for COVID-19 again, just 3 days after he was cleared to exit coronavirus isolation. Experts say it's a rare case of rebound after treatment with an antiviral drug. Biden, who will isolate again until he tests negative, says he's feeling fine. This from NBC News.
Hey folks, Joe Biden here, tested positive this morning.
President Biden isolating in the White House tonight after testing positive again for COVID-19.
I'm feeling fine, everything's good.
While the president currently has no symptoms, according to his doctor, he will isolate for the next 5 days to protect those around him. Mr. Biden tested negative on Tuesday evening, 5 days after initially contracting the virus last week.
My recovery was quick and I'm feeling great.
Unmasked as he returned to work in the Oval Office and for 2 indoor events on Thursday. The president's symptoms resolved with the help of Paxlovid, a free antiviral linked to so-called rebound cases. The president tested negative for 4 days in a row before testing positive again on Saturday morning, a trend among those who take the 5-day course.
It's not exactly clear why this is happening, but experts have theorized that one reason is that because you take the Paxlovid early in the course of infection, which is recommended.
Still, health experts say the benefit of medication that prevents severe illness or death outweighs the trouble of testing positive for a second time.
Individuals who do experience rebound do not end up sick enough to be hospitalized. So even though it's an inconvenience and it's delayed their recovery a little bit, it does not appear to be a dangerous consequence of Paxlovid rebound.
A wildfire in California's Klamath National Forest is now burning over 30,000 acres. The McKinney fire has intensified and spread, with California Governor Gavin Newsom declaring a state of emergency. Many residents have been asked to evacuate their homes, with fire officials saying erratic winds are complicating matters. The hot weather means fire seasons for several states, and many California residents are preparing for the worst. This man in Mariposa has been watching his house ever since flames from the Oak Fire came dangerously close. He has invested in generators, backup hoses and other equipment recommended by the California building codes to combat the threat of wildfires. At least 25 people, including 4 children, have died in parts of Kentucky hit by severe flooding, officials said. Search and rescue teams backed by the National Guard were searching flooded communities for missing people. This woman was one of those rescued. She said rescuers reached her just in time after her car had stalled and started flooding. Record floods have wiped out entire communities in some of the poorest places in America. Authorities expect the death toll to grow as rain keeps falling. The Kentucky River crested 6 feet above its previous record. Someone in a Chicago suburb has won $1.33 billion in a Mega Millions jackpot. The winning ticket was bought at a Speedway gas station in Des Plaines, but has so far not been claimed.
As far as the winner is concerned, we have not heard from the winner yet. We don't know whether or not they even know that they won a prize, so I encourage everybody to check your ticket. The winner has 12 months from the date of the drawing to claim their prize. However, if they only have 60 days from the date of the drawing to choose whether or not they want to take the cash option or not.
The ticket, which would have cost $2 to buy, matched all 6 numbers. Now the winning numbers were 13, 36, 45, 57, 67, and the mega ball is 14. It is the largest jackpot ever won in the state of Illinois and the second largest in the 20-year history of the game. Back locally, to educate youngsters on how to properly care for animals, the Hong Kong police and their furry partners are visiting schools across the city. Officers and their police dogs serve as ambassadors in spreading the message of preventing animal cruelty. During their school tours, students will get to pet the animals as well as learn about canine trivia, such as the fact that onions and grapes make them sick and nauseous. Last year, there were 88 known animal cruelty cases, which was a 50% rise over 2 years. The New Territories South Regional Police launched the educational program last year, aiming to nurture children to love and protect animals. And that's the news for tonight. Thanks for joining us.